Hey guys, it's me again, Orksler with this. Where we last left off, let's see, checking. Where we last left off on What If Belle was Fume Knight. I'm gonna give a quick little rundown on how a lot of things turned out. So to first start off, his dad used to be an ex-adventurer who actually used to be part of Hesiod's Familia. He left when he got to about level 4 and then left to just go and settle down with Belle's mother. We continue on with that storyline for many decades until, Belle is old enough, and eventually what happens is the Giants are still a part of the story. They ended up getting in trouble, start smashing things all around, and then you got King Vendrick. He eventually comes around with soldiers and such that sort of started uniting together, trying to help stop the Giants. Belle ends up, leaving his little home and actually goes to join Vendrick in his quest. Becomes a renowned general for Vendrick. Eventually, Velstadt shows up about halfway through. They start working together while Velstadt uses brute strength and prayers. They smash through the Giants relatively effectively. A little bit after that, Nasandra shows up where she starts helping Vendrick by being like sort of consort. That's a whole deal she plays into. Belle can feel something's going on with her. You just can't prove it, and he doesn't like her. That's all they really know. Eventually, they get to the part where they beat the Giant Lord, where it's actually Belle and Velstadt that work together, like united, if I remember correctly. They work together and take down the Giant Lord. Belle at this point had actually taken up the name as Raim, sort of like a cover his identity. Eventually, after their great victory, they go back to the castle, because what it was is that instead of one kingdom, all the little castles and all that of Drangleic, I'll say, were actually more like city-states, where each city had control over a vast area of land that they called their own. And since none of them really united, they couldn't really form a good enough defense against the Giants to stop them. So it all came down to really Vendrick and his, soldiers, his army. Eventually, one day, Belle asks to leave, and so he's given leave to go and visit his family. He meets up, talks with them, that whole sort of deal. Going through time, eventually Belle can feel that Nasandra is starting to lead the kingdom astray, and so he goes to revolt, quote-unquote, against her. He gathers up all the men he really had with him, like with Velstadt and Velstadt and Belle, they each had their own companies, you could call it, that dressed similar to them. Velstadt was like a preacher. He had an entire church behind his back, while Belle only had a few hundred soldiers. Very skilled and highly trained soldiers, but against Velstadt and his entire church, along with Vendrick's elite bodyguard, it was not a favorable fight for him. So when he and his soldiers inevitably fell, each one of them was killed except for Belle. He was sent off because Vendrick still had somewhat of a soft spot for him. So he sent Belle off, and Belle left Drangleic, said his goodbyes to his family after he was able to talk with them again, and went off on a journey to bring proof and to gain more strength to stand up to Nasandra. Nasandra is the fragment of Manus. As you guys know, if you've listened to the story before, she is essentially a fragment of a dark creature, and I can't remember exactly what fragments she represents. But I digress. Eventually, along the way, he runs into the Broom Tower, I believe, or Fume Tower. What it is a giant tower made by an old king that had long since perished. But the guardians of the tower were soldiers of ash and steel that were still kept around and animated by another dark shard that Belle could feel, and so he traveled his way down into the tower, making his way through the actual defenses so that way he can get to this dark shard. Eventually, he actually comes across Nadalia, which is her name, which is the shard that he sort of comes into contact with. Through banter and talking, essentially, Belle cuts a deal with her. She's gotten quite tired of being around the tower, and so she offers Belle strength, what he was looking for. So what she'll do is she merges, somewhat, quote-unquote, with a part of his soul, or in a way, attaches to his soul. And what she does is before, or Belle, I'll call him Belle, what Belle had was his original kit was a great shield with an arming sword, essentially. What happened, in the end, was that she took herself, essentially, and put it into the shield, but instead of a shield, it became that very big, gnarly greatsword that he has, or ultra greatsword that he ends up using. That's huge. And he can he has collected some of the ash from the tower, and he can sort of manipulate some of the soldiers. He can summon like 6 at once. It's the max number of soldiers he has at his disposal. But again, more like some of his abilities. Essentially, what happens is that they make their way to Orario, to where they talk with Miss Ana, which she is Belle's attendant in the anime, Miss Ana. And then he interacts a little bit with Loki's Familia, like Bet, Tion, Tiana, Eyes, but not a whole lot. But what ends up happening is he actually, one time when he was like, just arrived in Orario, he needed a place to crash, and so he went to go stay in a dilapidated church. When he was sleeping in there, he heard the doors open. He sprung up ready to fight whatever was coming at him. But it turns out it was just Hestia. Through talking, going back and forth, he learns this actually is Hestia the next morning, because he says he was going to go hunt for Familia. They talk a little bit back and forth. She asks about how Belle's father's been doing, and he's been doing good. We continue on with the story as he goes on with the first day he's been in the dungeon. He makes bank, essentially. The lower level mobs are not anything that really poses a threat to him. He's really able to clear through them very effectively and very quickly. As we continue on with the story, we go down the line. There really isn't a whole lot that happens to him. A lot of the things that he comes in contact with is rather easily dealt with, where he can strike it down very simply. Now, I've rewatched the series recently, as well as my own videos. That took a little bit to get down, the information. And from my memory, I never went over the Silverback incident. As well as he isn't with wealth. He has just gotten down to the point where he actually... Oh, I almost forgot. During his time in Orario, what had happened is actually Velstadt had somewhat saw what what Belle was talking about. He saw where Nadalia's influence on the kingdom was sort of corrupting it, as he would say. You could see where the leaves and the area just seems less vibrant. The light and life was just being sucked away from it. He saw Vendrick becoming slowly but surely becoming a bit withered, bit older looking, he was slowly but surely withering into a husk. So what Velstadt did was he actually sent away one of his trusted people to go and find Belle. So that way he could somewhat try to convince him to bring him back here. Where I last left off, Belle had actually met Lily and them, and they had just gone past the part where he and Lily had actually killed the people that were trying to, leave Lily for dead. Like, after she had stabbed him, like, through, like, a slit in his armor with a somewhat poison, or, yeah, pretty much, let's say, a poison that numbs Bell and, like, somewhat paralyzes his body. What he actually did in this is he actually called upon Nadalia to summon his ash soldiers and to give Bell some strength. When he did this, his sword sort of ignited in fire like it does when he goes into his second phase. They just pretty much killed everybody there. And so they looted what was left of the people, and then he and Lily left. That's where the person from Velstat's personal person ended up saying, like, he's getting closer to Bell. Now, this person on power level between Bell and Velstat was able to beat Bell. Was able to beat Bell initially. Right now, Velstat couldn't beat Bell. Along with Nadalia, as well as becoming an adventurer, he is actually able to rampantly amp up his stats and all that. And I haven't told you guys about his special skill. His special skills. If you want to learn about that, I believe that's in episode 4. That's in episode 4 where I explain, like, his special stats. Sorry? Oh, yawning. Well, if I remember, it's essentially, he has the spell, he has the initial thing, which is he can amp up his stats very rapidly. He can level up very quickly. He has the control of the Ash Warriors, and he also has, it states that Nadalia is, latched onto him, giving him power. I'm falling off the bed. I continue. I'm falling off the bed, guys. I'm sorry, real quick. Sorry about that, guys. I'm not joking. I was literally falling off the bed. I got Scarlet right here with me, and she's sleeping. They like to push me off the bed. But I digress. Again. It's going on rapidly, as what they do is they actually ended up going to one of the higher levels and actually sell the loot that they got from the people there. They didn't have a lot of monster cores or anything. What they had was a lot of personal items and such. Like, they had rings, gems, jewelries, that sort of deal. They actually went up to one of the higher levels, and they sort of sold some of the stuff. And just for a bit of fun, they actually decide to look around for a bit. They go around looking at some of the items. They're like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty nice. They see a little, some armor sets that they look at. Bell looks at one, he's like, that kind of looks like Pursuer armor. As the Pursuers were, the military police, I would say, of Vendrick's army. He's like, huh. Well, for one of those to get all the way out here, then again, the armor's probably pretty common. Design, at least. As they're looking around, they see unique armor. They see, a smaller thing of armor that's white and red. As he's looking at it, he's like... As he puts it against him, he's like, this thing's good, is only good enough for a shoulder pauldron. So he sets it down, he's like, man, there's a lot going on here. As he and Lily sort of just go through shopping, Lily actually had, some of her, clothes torn and stuff from the people and how they handled her. So they came up to these floors where she says she shops here typically, and so they got some stuff. They got her a nice little tunic, a new one, things like that. Sorry, that was Scarlet. As they decide to leave for the day, because they don't really need anything. As they're walking by, they're talking and talking, until eventually they get down to the ground floor. Lily still feels kind of bad for what happened, but he says that as she's trying to apologize, he just talks about how kind of hungry, so he's just gonna head to Hostess Fertility. And Lily's kind of speechless as he's walking away, and so she just sort of stands there with her arms behind her back. He's like, "Are you coming? Come on. I know you're hungry too." As Nadalia's like, she literally almost just got you killed, and you are still being kind to her. He's like, "Hey, I don't know her story, Nadalia. For all I know, it could be 10 times worse than my own. But why don't we find out?" So they go sit down, and as they order, like, Belle talks to some of the waitresses, like Seer and... sorry about that. But he just starts talking with some of the people, like Seer and Ryu. Talks about his day, some of the things they have, but Lily's still rather quiet. But he just orders for he orders for both of them. While Nadalia is like being all happy and such, she's about to get another tasty meal. She can't wait for it. But as they're sitting there in like sort of their own little lull of the patrons of Hostess Fertility, he sort of just looks her dead in the eye and asks, "So, are there more of them?" She's like, "What?" She's like, Belle asks, "Are there more of them? Are there more people that will come after you?" She's like, "I don't know, maybe." He's like, "What Familia are you part of?" She's like, I'm part of the... I believe it's... She says she's part of the Soma Familia. Belle sort of asked, what actually does that mean? Like, does it mean anything in particular? She is somewhat embarrassed, though she sort of comes clean to him, saying that Soma Familia worships the god of alcohol, Soma. I'll just say his name because I can't remember it for the life of me. She says, but they don't really worship him. It's the alcohol they worship. He's like, "Go on, I'm listening." She goes on to then explain that a lot of them taste Soma's alcohol and they sort of get addicted to it. Belle sort of nods his head. He's like, he's not, since he's served with soldiers and stuff like that, some of them have gotten into like drinking and stuff like that to help with the things that they've witnessed. And though he personally himself never really took part in it, he also realized that he never really, though he fought on the front lines, he was able to do more, you could say. Like, he achieved more victories, and so he saw even though he was in the thicker of it, he saw the least amount of the carnage, the brutality. And generally, he was stronger, more mentally fortified than most men typically are. But I digress. She goes on to explain that the Soma Familia, the higher members pick on the lower members to get more money for the alcohol. He says, "Is there nowhere for you to go?" She's like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "What if we were able to get you out of there? Is there a way for you to leave? Like, it's up to your God to let you from the Familia, correct?" She's like, "Yes." "So then why not just leave?" He's like, "You need a Familia in this city, but Master Belle." He's like, "Hey, it's just Belle. Belle, I don't know who would let me join." He's like, "You could join my Familia." She's like, "What do you mean? Like, a Familia such as yours must be grand and strong, right?" He's like, as he's thinking about it, he's like, they never really talked about each other's Familias. They knew they were adventurers and such, but they never really talked about it. This is actually, as he laughs at it, he's like, "This is the first time we talked about Familias." He's like, Nadalia's like, "Oh yeah." As she's like savoring the food, as Belle and her have gotten their food a little bit, and so she's enjoying like a little bit of the appetizers that they have available. She's like, what was that about? Oh yeah, that yeah, what you said. And Dahlia, really? She's like, what? Using some of my power worked up an appetite. He's like, what? She's like, yeah. What do you think got purged that poison from your system? And he's just like, oh, correct. She's like, yep, that was me, so thank me all you want. As she's sort of giving herself a pat on the back, Belle returns to the topic at hand with Lily. He's like, by all means, I'm the only child of my Familia. She's like, wait, what? It's like, yep, I'm the only one. And she's like, no way, a Familia such as yours must be, with a member such as so strong as you, must be grand. He's like, well, my dad was part of this Familia when he was younger, when he was an adventurer. I, though, recently came here. Not too long ago, in fact. I traveled around for a little bit, but, you know, it's just how it is. As he sort of goes on to explain that, it's really just him and his goddess, and they live in a dilapidated church. Of course, it's not the most luxurious living, but they get by with what they need. She sort of asks, so you're willing to let me join? He's like, well, it would be up to my goddess, but I'm confident she would let you come with. She's like, okay. He's like, tomorrow, would you be mind to bring, so I could talk to your goddess tonight, see if she'd be willing? She's like, you want to stay with us tonight? She's like, that would be appreciated. It's like, alright. As they get their food, it's like, we don't have to talk about this topic. Let's eat. Sort of dig into their meal. As then, after finishing their meal, paying what they owe, they go back to the church. And they sort of talk with it. Sorry. Sorry about that. As they're talking along, as he goes back to the church, like I said, they talk with Hestia about Lily really joining and like not learning the ropes, sorry, about joining their Familia and how she would feel about that. Hestia tells her that she would have to drop from her original Familia. As long as she does that, she'd be willing to take her in. She doesn't really know about like all that sort of stuff that happened in the like dungeon, because Belle feels like that's something that could just stay between Lily and himself and Nadalia. Which I gotta go over that. But it'll be safe for later date, as Lily wanted to just deal with the pressing matters that they had on hand. So, after they go to bed, they sleep, and Nadalia and Belle sort of talk in each other's dreams. As Nadalia's like, you've grown a little bit soft for that little kid, aren't you? He's like, shut up. She's like, oh, don't worry, Belle. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me. After all, the big dark Fume Knight can't be seen being all nice and soft for a little girl, can he? He's like, oh, God. You know, really smashing you apart even and cost me half my soul. It's starting to sound more and more tempting. She's like, oh, don't say that. You love me and you know it. He's like, I really don't. So is there anything else you want to talk about, or do you want to just perpetually tease me? She's like, I'm going to let you know something straight. Let's try not get into another situation like that again. He's like, what? You almost died. If it wasn't for me, you would have been fucked. He's like, yes, by all means, continue to praise yourself and pat yourself on the back, even though just this one, she's like, Belle, As he hears the seriousness in her voice, she's like, that was dangerous. You die, I die. My soul may be attached to that sword, but at least half of it is attached to you. Remember, I said this is a two-way street between us. I ain't getting screwed over just because of your feelings and you wanting to play the hero. She tells him that very clearly, that she ain't gonna risk it, that she'll find someone else more suited if it comes down to that. As long as he doesn't die, she can skip out. As Belle says, she's bluffing, as she's like, try me. As you guys, some of you guys, if you've seen this before, they may like play back and forth, but the two of them are somewhat at odds. Belle barely comes into the concept of trusting her. And Nadalia is going to look for any chance she gets to take advantage of Belle. Because that's just her nature in this aspect. Sure, she may be able to change with many, many years, but it won't be anytime soon, really. And Belle knows that truth. You can somewhat feel it from her, if you can get that, can grasp that. So he's like, I'll try to limit it. Now can I finally rest for tonight? Or you can continue trying to talk down to me and not tell me not to be a hero. She's like, that's it for now. She fades away as he's just like, damn Shard. As he just sits down like in his dream and goes actually to bed. Though he has nightmares about the kingdom and how much it may have fallen to ruin already. That if he's too late or not. You really hope he ain't. Because he truly does love that city. He loves those people. And he's going to be damned if he doesn't do everything in his power to protect them. Even like it has already done, it cost him a portion of his soul to do it. Even if they hate him for it. It's what he's got to do. So he wakes up the next morning, he's like, oh, my head. As Nadalia sort of informs him, this is a bit of a whiplash from having to really forcefully, force herself into his body to purge the system. It caused the body to a little bit overwork itself a little bit to purge that stuff from his system so quickly. It was a lot of stress, you could say. As Belle wakes up, he's like, my fucking head. As Lily actually is still asleep, as he actually slept like in the corner with his sword and stuff. As Lily and Hestia took to bed. As he woke up, he's like, ugh. As he didn't sleep in his armor, he still slept in like his, some more comfortable clothes. As he's getting up and like stretching and he feels the pops, cracks. You can see where Lily and Hestia start to stir too. As they both wake up, Belle's like, good, you're up, Lily. We're gonna go talk to your god. As he yawns and scratches the back of his neck, we're gonna see if we can get you out of your Familia. As he rubs his eyes, he's like, be ready. And as he looks up to the thing, is like, the sun has really just rose, and he's like, be ready in an hour. And she's like, okay. As they get up, as she gets dressed and such in some normal clothes, nothing too big, but he gets dressed in his armor because she's told him a bit about her Familia, so he's gonna be ready to chop some people in half if it comes down to it. As Hestia wishes the both of them luck, Hestia goes to her job that she's really taken to doing, which she sells like at little shopping things, stuff like that. As they make their way to the Soma place, They can see there's already like a crowd of people surrounding the gate. As they're all standing there, she's like, oh, as she sort of rubs her head and she looks down kind of embarrassed, she's like, Belle's like, are these more addicts? She's like, yes. Oh, I'm sorry for you to see us like this, Master Bell. He's just like, oh, it's fine. As he slams his sword down on the ground as it causes a massive thong. Everybody like stops for a second, turns around. He's like, move away from the gate. As he starts somewhat power walking with a giant sword on his shoulder, a lot of the people, they sober up pretty quickly and they start moving away from the thing as Lily's close behind him. Open the gate. As the people guarding the gate sort of open it. As Belle is still, like I said, he has a very imposing figure in this. As they close the gate again, people start trying to grasp at it and start trying to get the gate open once more, begging and pleading to be let in. As Belle's like, where's your god located at? She's like, that room. He's like, good, take me to him. She sort of was like, as the house is nice, you could say, not the best upkeep, but it, it's there. As they start walking through there, they can see where some of the other members of the Soma Familia, they look rugged and not of the best, not cut from the cleanest cloth, I believe is the saying. As Belle's looking at him, he can see a few of them like looking at him. A lot of them look like assassins, thugs, stuff like that. Belle's just like, your familia is full of criminals. Or lowlifes at the very least. She's like, yes, I know. He's like, Lily, we're getting you out of this today. Even if I gotta smack some sense to your god myself. As they start going up the stairs, they start making their way as they knock on the door. Soma hears this, he's just like, Actually walks to the door and opens it. As he sees the giant towering figure with a giant sword on his back and another sword sheathed at his hip, it's like, Soma? He's like, yes? One of your people would like to resign from your familia. She's like, oh, well, who? Sorry, I just had to Google it. His name is Xanis Lustra. Weird name, but he has a very thin-looking face, sharp chin. He wears square glasses, has gray hair, and his skin is quite pale too. As I'll say, when they were there, he actually comes around and says, "Ah, Lily, it's been so long." As though he looks kind of proper, his personality is pretty rotten. He's only thinking about really carnal desires, drinking, booze, and women. He is not a good person, you could say, like, at all. And so, as Lily's like, oh no, as he's sort of like the captain of the Familia, Soma takes a look at it and is like, Xanis, what are you doing here? He's like, just coming here to acquire young Lily. She is in need for a pretty good, adventure. As he's cooped up several schemes to scam people and stuff. She's like, oh, well, I thought she was resigning today. As Xanis, cool, somewhat shifts for a second. She's like, excuse me? He's like, yes, Lily just told me she's coming to resign. She's like, as she's somewhat scared of Xanis, Belle takes a step forwards like, Lily? She feels comforted knowing Belle's right there, as Xanis takes a step back as he actually gives a signal to one of the people behind him to gather up some of the people around. As the guy nods to him and he goes off on his own, Xanis is like, now, Lily, couldn't we talk about this? Come to some sort of agreement. As she's like, I'm sorry, but no, Master Bell has sort of offered me another place in his familia. She's like, that seems to be a situation. Well, my good sir, we still need Lily for quite a while. He's like, no, you don't. You want her. You don't need her. There's a big difference. It's like, well, obviously, someone with gear and stuff like yours, you wouldn't need such a weak member in your familia. Now, would you? He's like, my familia isn't well known, nor is it very large. We need extra members to help get our notoriety out there. As the guy, Xanath is sort of like, huh, as he pushes up his glasses, he's like, now, let's not get too rash. As then you can see where people are sort of like coming out of the shadows, where they've been alerted by the guy that Xanath sent away. As Bell takes a look at this, and he's just like, as he puts a hand on his single sword, he's just like, I will let all you know this once. Those who stand before me, intent on keeping Lily from doing as she pleases, it will hurt you guys more, and I will not care how much I hurt you to get her dream accomplished. As he draws the sword and somewhat taps, like brings it all the way out, as he somewhat holds it upside down, like waiting, is like, choice is all of yours. You can fight and most likely die for this guy, for this captain, or you can go about your usual business. Choice is yours. As Soma's just like, quite stout, well, quite a strong figure, conviction. As he walks over, leaves him, is like, as Lily knows, Goddess Soma, he's like, God Soma? He's just like, holds up a finger, and as he takes ladle, puts in his, like, little brewing set, I'll say, as he pours into a cup, he's like, what is your name, Knight? He's just like, I am Bell Cornell, Bell the Fume Knight, child of Hestia. As he is still watching the people around him, he's like, drink from this cup, as he holds it. If you are able to tell me exactly what you have just told me, that is Lily's choice to come with you, I'll consider letting her go with you and doing it. You have to say exactly what you said, remember? He's like, it is Lily's choice to leave. My familia needs her. It's like, good enough. And Lily, as she had confessed that she wanted to leave with Bell, drink this after he drinks his. If you are able to say what you want, that you truly wish to leave, I will let you. I will not hinder you, and neither will my familia. As Soma's thing is that with the alcohol he's made, he can see what his familia has turned into. Nothing but addicts and criminals, and he sort of wants to see if there's a little bit good that was left in his little covenant. So with this, he takes his chance to see if they were truly willing, like this is what they truly wanted, and the alcohol would show this, really. As Bell drinks it, as he's just like, oh, as he can feel it, as Nadalia's just like, God damn. As she can feel it in herself, a shard of darkness, she's like, oh, Bell, you're so nice. As he's just like, how are you drunk? As a lot of that alcohol went straight to Nadalia. Bell can feel a bit of it, and he can feel it, and he's like semi-drunk at this point. As he's just, Lily wants to come with me, and my familia needs more members. Oh, as he actually sort of leans against the doorway, he's like, what in the world was that? She's like, a strong brew. Lily. He holds a cup to her, and she sort of like takes a sip, and she's like, it drops to the ground as she sort of falls to her knees. As Belle sort of just like, Lily, are you okay? As his words slur a little bit, she's like, I'm good, Master Belle. As she's rubbing her face, as she can feel, she's tasted the wine before, and she's like, this stuff is even better than before. She wants it. She's craving it, and she sees that the cup is spilling on the floor. She wants more of it. But she also thinks about what Belle did for her and what he's offered her. And that this is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that's landed her in her lap. She can always get more booze, but a chance like this, she can't just pass it up. So she decides that she's going to take Belle up on his offer and tells Soma that she would like to leave. And that, as she's saying this somewhat slurred, I want to leave with him. She points up to Belle as she pats him on his, like, thigh. He's just like, God, this hurts. Am I already getting a hangover? As she's like, he's good guy. I want to leave with him. As she somewhat breaks down a little bit, and he's like, he's nice and treats me good. As she sort of bows down, please let me go with him. As someone's looking at it, he's like, okay. And he's like, go lay down on that table. As Xanis, I believe is what I called him. Xanis, he has a very forgettable name. He's not even in the show for that long. Xanis is like, excuse me, Lord Soma, but you can't honestly. As Soma looks at him through his like hair that comes down, he's like, leave Xanis now. As he's like, Belle, which closed the door, he's like, yeah. As Belle closes the door, as Belle sits down, he's just like, my head hurts. As he's just like, yes, quite sorry about this. That batch was quite strong. I'm surprised you both were able to say what you want to. That batch was actually also quite addicting to it. As Belle's like, no shit. As Nadalia is still drunk in his head, she's like, I love you, Belle, and I hate your guts. Oh, I can't wait for us to go kill Nadalia together. Nadalia, you just said your name. It's Nassandra that we gotta go kill. She's like, oh yeah, that's funny. As she just hears snoring inside his head, he's like, oh, Lord help me. As Lily gets freed from the Soma Familia, and they head out to go get the thing done with Hestia. But I think that's where I'm going to be ending this one off at. I hope you guys have enjoyed the return of What If Belle Was Fume Knight. I hope you guys continue to enjoy this. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Hope you guys continue to enjoy this. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy this. You guys have a nice day, nice night, nice life. Sorry, cut out there for a second.